to have done so nonetheless. Mr. Speaker, I know with absolute certainty that the Prime Minister, more so than anyone else, would not want me to remind him of what I have said. And he would not want me to speak about that, about what is the present situation with murders and shootings in our country today. 3 years and 5 months after, the people of this country, hard-working men and women in Montego Bay, in the residential communities throughout Jamaica, the inner cities, the farming districts of Clarendon, the people of Manchester, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, and of course Portmore, and all over Jamaica, who all believe and trusted the then leader of the opposition, now Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the people were not wrong in having that trust. Rather, they were betrayed. They were deceived. And they did not deceive themselves. Rather, someone betrayed them. Someone deceived them. That is what has brought us to where we are now, Mr. Speaker. Please be reminded, Mr. Speaker, the PNP has not been in office for the past 3.5 years, and I want to repeat that. We have not been in office for the past 3.5 years. So, Mr. Speaker, let us ask a few basic and fundamental questions. What has been done and achieved over that past 3.5 years? What persons are being able to sleep with their windows and doors open? Are our people safer now after 3.5 years ago? Mr. Speaker, if the debate provided for direct interaction between yourself and I, you are an honest, God-fearing, and informed gentleman, you will respond to each of these basic questions in this way. What has been done and achieved over the last 3.5 years? Zozo and state of emergency implemented. That's what you would say. And if asked, Mr. Speaker, are persons being able to sleep with their windows and doors open? You would say absolutely no. Are these persons being, are our people safer after 3.5 years? You would answer absolutely no. And with those honest answers, Mr. Speaker, your place in heaven would have been more secure. Mr. Speaker, it is against that background. No, I'm talking to the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is against this background that I set out to briefly do a couple things. One, provide a few suggestions and recommendations going forward. Make a brief analysis of the presentation before this House by my friend and counterpart, the Minister of National Security, and give a synopsis of the crime and violence situation now, with emphasis on the long and short-term steps to be taken. Mr. Speaker, I have given you a picture of the current situation in a nutshell. Mr. Speaker, for some time, over a long time now, the central national security issue is crime reduction and maintaining such reductions, if and when they are achieved. Indeed, there are many different critical components in the national security architecture that supports crime reduction. However, the central issue is the reduction and the maintenance of such reduction. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, as it is everywhere in the world, including Jamaica, we can only start to reduce crime when we can identify the perpetrators of crimes, including the masterminds or the kingpins, their line support members and facilitators. Having identified them, we must be able to apprehend and prosecute them so that they can be locked away. Period. If we cannot effectively do this, Mr. Speaker, we will forever just be talking about the crime problem as we have been doing. This is not rocket science or any big revelation I'm making here. We have previously recognized this. I've done it before in this country with successful results. I am talking here about the criminal enterprises that were involved in the drug trade that almost caused our international trading to collapse. The rest is history. While the criminal players are different now, and their mode of operations are also different, they are organically the same. They are led by masterminds driven by financial returns, some having operatives at various levels, including members of the security force and the established business communities, the political organizations at various levels. They will and they do murder persons as they please to maintain and control their criminal enterprises. And so, Mr. Speaker, as for the crime areas such as St. James, Westmoreland, Clarendon, sections of Kingston, the entire Kingston metropolitan area, which includes areas of St. Catherine, we on this side have made suggestions consistently for almost 2 years now. The opposition has recommended the establishment of special task forces supported by strong intelligence gathering capacities drawn from within the JCF and the JDF, and possibly retired competent officers from both. This would be properly supported by an able team of lawyers working with intelligence gathering personnel to ensure that those cases of persons apprehended will be put away once and for all. Just recently, Mr. Speaker, we hear of many members of gangs who are taken before the court and had to be released because the cases were not well prepared. There are some, yes, but it needs to be strengthened. The point I'm making simply is that the work must be done so that when they go to court, we don't have those situations. No, we can't use the failures of the past as excuse not to do better. And that's my simple point. Mr. Speaker, I want to make a few recommendations going forward. Mr. Speaker, while I will discuss a few issues of concern about the crime management in our country, at the very outset, I will now put forward a few things to be done as of now towards ameliorating our national security challenges. One, we have been saying for some time now that we need to galvanize public and national support. We as an opposition for some time now. Mr. Speaker, the National Crime and Violence Prevention Summit was held yesterday at the Jamaica Conference Center. It was a summit that has been organized by the opposition and many national stakeholder groups, including the private sector, the churches, the NGOs, trade unions, and scores of individuals and ordinary citizens. In fact, the government agreed to such a gathering at the Vale Royal talks on January 7th of this year. A date of January 16th was set by the government, to which we agreed. It never happened. But I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, to advise this House of that heartwarmingly successful event yesterday at the Jamaica Conference Center. The opposition is also quite pleased, Mr. Speaker, that the government participated. It did so through the representation by no other than the ably Attorney General. It was also represented by the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the Jamaica Defense Force. The JCF made presentation. The summit, Mr. Speaker, had over 40 stakeholder groups from across the country, including the PSOJ, the PMI, Jamaicans for Justice, students' organizations, academia, led by noted social anthropologist Dr. Herbert Gale. We also had representation from the diplomatic community and international agencies, which we sought and obtained. And we did so, Mr. Speaker, because we will need their support in partnering with our national plan going forward. Mr. Speaker, the presentations were rich. They were supported by empirical data and numerous and an enormous depth and breadth of experiences from researchers and practitioners in the high crime and violence communities across Jamaica. The anecdotal and systemic experiences referenced by the presenters at the summit were quite chilling, to say the least, Mr. Speaker. These underscore the urgency of coordinated approaches and interventions that are impatient of any further delay. Mr. Speaker, the opposition has taken this bold step because of the urgency of the crime and violence situation, the level of fear that grips this country. This situation does not afford either political party the convenient luxury of political opportunism to claim who did what. Saving the lives of Jamaicans, reducing the fear that grips their daily lives, is impatient of any further delay. Mr. Speaker, in 1963, amidst the daily killings and civil and human rights abuses against blacks in the United States, Martin Luther King Jr. remarked then, and I quote, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for rigorous and positive action." End of quote. Mr. Speaker, we in the opposition do believe that as a country, we are also too late. And the time to place blames has long passed. And enough blame is indeed available to be shared by who wish to be so consumed. The next best time, Mr. Speaker, to act is now. There is the fierce urgency of now in our Jamaica. The time to galvanize the consensus of a broad cross-section of the country is now. The time to act on the consensus issues is now. The time to allocate the required monetary resources is now. The summit now. When there's an emergency, we make emergency funding available. The summit is now providing a framework for action that we must act on now. Today is always the right time to do the right thing. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, last week when I came to the House, I had it in my presentation to announce the decision of the opposition to establish an epoch-type oversight mechanism, as was developed by the opposition leader as the then Minister of Finance, Dr. Peter Phillips. However, that announcement was preceded by the Prime Minister's announcement that the government is in support of such an entity. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, you can appreciate how even more pleased the opposition was and is in hearing of that announcement. Mr. Speaker, this entity will simply carry out ongoing reviews of the deliverables agreed to in a crime plan by the government and various stakeholders. The construct of this mechanism is to be finalized. We look forward to that. And we would recommend within some prescribed period, perhaps within 30 to 45 days, after consultations with key partners from the Crime Summit and other stakeholder groups. In much the same way the PNP leadership has demonstrated the will and capacity to tackle the hard challenge of rescuing the economy when it was on the brink of collapse, it is the same proven will and capacity that must be there in securing our country. Undertake to execute this undertaking with alacrity and urgency. We are a government in waiting. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, we talk about now. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, trust and confidence must be restored in the JCF as the foremost security agency of our nation. The JCF must be different. Towards achieving this, Mr. Speaker, each and every member of the JCF must have a sense of belonging to the task they are empowered to undertake. The majority of members of the JCF who are of outstanding character cannot be held at ransom by those few who are not, but perhaps well placed to be allowed to continue unabated. They must be properly compensated. They need to hustle on the side in order to maintain a reasonable life that is unbecoming of the esteemed position of a law enforcement officer must come to an end. They must be seen and treated as professionals. We have done so in other areas of our law enforcement architecture. We must do it with our police. However, in return, Mr. Speaker, we must demand and hold accountable every member of the JCF, starting with the Commissioner, to ensure that every dollar of taxpayer resource provided, we get a just return. That must be a covenant that we as a government make with the people of Jamaica. Our people demand it and they deserve it. Someone must be accountable. Fourthly, Mr. Speaker, the absence of substantial and meaningful levels of public order throughout the country and in some critical areas serves to enable criminal activities and violence. These critical areas are already identified by the JCF mapping data. The police presence is further compromised by the limited number of police personnel to patrol areas sufficiently. Let us not make perfection the enemy of good. We are proposing, Mr. Speaker, the immediate deployment of sufficient drones and similar and appropriate technology applications to those identified critical and hotspot areas. In much the same way, we have found the funds for the aircraft purchases to identify the movement of persons and contraband potentially coming into Jamaica. The government must find the funds to assist in protecting innocent Jamaicans from criminals who are already within our borders. It will be an investment to protect Jamaicans against wanton and unabated murders and fear among Jamaican citizens daily. Mr. Speaker, I am aware that there have been acquisitions of some drones and that their use has started but remains stillborn over 2 years now. From discussions in the public accounts, public appropriations and administration committee, we have learned of some drones purchased that are for leisure purpose, inappropriate for security work, but nonetheless purchased. That is an acquisition that we are going to require. And the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee is here and I'm serving notice, Mr. Chairman, that we want us to examine the purchase of those drones, the appropriateness and the process of procurement of those drones. Yeah. We can't allow something else like the used car to prevail. I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, that the caliber drones that is needed is in the possession of the Army, but not enough to provide the level of coverage that we need. Mr. Speaker, there are communities across this island that are starved of social amenities and support. While there are many residents who are God-fearing in these areas, there are also others who are falling into paths that lead to criminality. Gangs have emerged from some of these areas to wreak havoc on this nation. It is essential that these communities are identified and the social intervention apparatus that are available are made immediately, they are put immediately in place in these communities. Those who had promised to deliver this, given the presence, we know the result. It has not. Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to detain the House too long. I just want to summarize a couple points in the last couple minutes available. I will deal with the other items at another time. I just want to give a summary at this point. Our national security challenges, Mr. Speaker, they are huge, but they are not insurmountable. As a nation, we have had a few challenges before. Racial oppression and discrimination resulting in bloodshed and deaths. Political violence and deaths at historically high levels then. Electoral crisis that threatened our young and evolving democracy. And more recently, a near collapse of our economy. On all occasions, Mr. Speaker, that I've referenced, we as a country responded and saved our nation. And now, historically and globally, high levels of murder and shootings prevails in our country. It is for us to respond with diligence, collective purpose, and will. Mr. Speaker, let us become really personal about doing what is right and inescapable for our nation and our people. If not for our individual selves, let us do it for our children, their children. Let them be able to say, we did something lasting for them that they can truly be proud of. Mr. Speaker, the moment is now. Let us do the right thing now. We have the pens in our hands to write tomorrow's history. Mr. Speaker, I have reminded you in this Parliament, in this brief intervention, as was done as of 2012, after the near collapse of Jamaica's economy. We must be reminded of the truth and the facts. Some don't like the facts. Mr. Speaker, our then Prime Minister, the Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, Mr. Speaker, our then Prime Minister, the Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, assigned the leadership of that recovery to the then Minister of Finance, Dr. Peter Phillips.
Mr. Leader, the member has expired.
I believe is about to, in the process of wrapping up. Yes, so Mr. Speaker, I ask that he be given enough time to wrap up his presentation.
Those in favor? Those against? Mr. Jackson.
My good friend from Northeast St. Andrew sometimes is uncomfortable with the truth.
Yes, he is.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, Mr. Speaker, I have reminded you and in this Parliament in this brief presentation, as we have done as of 2012, after the near collapse of Jamaica's economy, our then Prime Minister, the Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, assigned the leadership. Mr. Speaker, we responded exceedingly well. That outstanding performance is now official. The Prime Minister has acknowledged it. Mr. Speaker, we now must do like what we have done before. Mr. Speaker, let us do it, as I said, not for ourselves. Let us do it for the people of Jamaica. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is it Dr. Chung?
You live in his constituency. Mr. Speaker, as we come to the end of sectoral, let me make a few comments I don't time to have proposed to do. But in fairness, sectoral debate has provided us with a welcome opportunity to provide an overview of the extensive work that has been undertaken by the government in pursuit of its better Jamaica for all Jamaicans. I wish to acknowledge, of course, and thank the Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, for his steadfast leadership, unwavering commitment to accomplishing the goal of prosperity for all Jamaicans through an unprecedented drive towards sustained economic and social development of our people. I also wish to thank my colleagues, ministers, for their comprehensive presentation, which have served to inform and enlighten the people of Jamaica about the work being done on their behalf. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I wish to acknowledge the members of the opposition for their commendable presentation on issues of importance to the country. I'd like to extend my profound thanks to the team at the Ministry of National Security for their dedication to keeping Jamaica secure through relevant anti-crime policies and legislation and maintaining of the integrity of the island's borders. The safety of its citizens, the communities, I must make special mention, of course, of the leadership and the support staff in my office who continue to assist me in executing my duties in sometimes challenging circumstances and giving support to the Commissioner of Police, the Chief of Staff, and the Director of MOCA. I'd also like to thank the people of Jamaica who continue to express confidence in the commitment of the government to making their lives better. Mr. Speaker, I think we would all agree that 2019-2020 sectoral debate has been of exemplary standard in terms of presentation. Under your guidance, the representatives from both sides of the aisle have done well in providing the people of Jamaica with some quality presentations as they reflect on the work being undertaken to move Jamaica forward. Even so, Mr. Speaker, though, it may be time for us to reflect upon these debates, how these debates are structured moving forward. As parliamentarians, it is sometimes difficult on us to maintain the pace with the changing world and the changing needs of our people. The nature and format of the sectoral debates should be relevant to the times we live in and to the needs of the people of this nation. Extensive delays and the replication of sometimes archaic Westminster traditions threaten to some extent the significance of these debates. More specifically, Mr. Speaker, these debates follow and should be in response to the presentation of the expenditure budget at the beginning of the fiscal year. After approximately 3 months engaged in this process, issues in relation to the borders seem to far removed and are no longer central to the discussions, quite frankly. It is time, Mr. Speaker, for us to review the way we conduct these debates to make them more relevant and meaningful to the people of the country and the times we live in. Mr. Speaker, the ministers who made their presentation during these debates would have detailed the plans of this government for the current fiscal year. Several noteworthy achievements were also highlighted to remind the people of Jamaica that ensuring their best future remains our mission. The people of Jamaica have heard firsthand the plans, programs, and policies that are being put in place to guarantee the peace and prosperity of this great nation. The sustained growth of the economy record achievements in tourism, health, culture, and social security, major reduction in unemployment levels, marked improvements in the physical infrastructure, environmental preparedness through targeted climate action, and the introduction of technological solutions to increase efficiency across all sectors are but a few of the areas in which day-to-day lives of Jamaicans are being made better. It is undeniable, Mr. Speaker, that Jamaica is on its way to achieving its true potential for greatness. This government is committed to doing what it takes to achieve the goal for the benefit of generations to come. In order to realize this goal, we have had to be targeted in our legislative amendments, strategic in our regulatory requirements, and decisive in our enforcement of policies. We have had to make difficult and sometimes unpopular decisions, knowing that it was what was needed to move the country forward. After those 3 years at the helm of government, having been elected by a majority of the people of Jamaica, citizens of this blessed country are assured that their lives are better today than it was 3 years ago. Separate and apart from the clear policy direction that has been given by the Prime Minister to his ministers and their stewardship of the ministries, departments and agencies they govern, the country is seeing record levels of participation by the private sector, civil society, and the wider population, fomenting a new Jamaica for future generations. In this inclusive nature of our leadership that has driven the desire by many Jamaicans to increase their level of participation in the development of a strong economy and ultimately a strong society. Through the formal mechanism for national dialogue between the government and stakeholder groups, the social partnership roundtable, Partnership for Prosperity of Jamaica, Mr. Speaker, we have seen continued participation. Right. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to take a little bit different route to concluding my presentation, because security remains the major national topic and a priority for this government. And I will seek to literally give a report of the last 3 months, while I summarize exactly where we were in the security architecture, what we have done in this time as we approach the solution to the problems facing the security in this country. For Jamaica to be a place of choice to live, work, and raise families and do business, security must be the foundation on which our future is built. Safety, public safety, is the most important element in a stable and progressive community. The government continues to work hard at improving the security environment for the benefit of our citizens and business. We are mindful of the fact that a deeply rooted and extensive history of corruption, crime, and violence permeates the fibre of the Jamaican society. In response, we have put in place comprehensive security measures, which will result in the complete overhauling of our security infrastructure, human resources, and supporting measures. We are not doing what has been done before. It has not worked. And only a madman do the same thing over and over and expect better results. Making the men and women of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Jamaica Defense Force, and related security agencies better trained, prepared, and equipped to engage today's 21st century criminal elements. Mr. Speaker, the safety and security of all Jamaicans is of paramount importance to this government. We can no longer rely on antiquated reactionary crime-fighting measures of the time past. The criminals have evolved, and our crime-fighting measures must also evolve. The crime, violence, and corruption must be met with forward-thinking, current, and novel anti-crime responses. That is what we have embarked upon with Plan Secure Jamaica. Plan Secure Jamaica, Mr. Speaker, a comprehensive, holistic approach focuses on some 10 areas of strategic importance: violence and crime, public order, corruption, community safety, territorial integrity, crisis response and resilience, justice, cyber defense, critical infrastructure protection, economic security. That's a comprehensive layout of what we propose to do and are doing. All of these critical areas are part of a plan to secure Jamaica, a plan to ensure Jamaica and Jamaicans are safe today and for a long time to come. Since its inception, several initiatives have been undertaken that have resulted positively in combating crime and laying the foundation for sustainability and criminality and the reduction of criminality in Jamaica. I'd like to lay out a few of them. Literally report, Mr. Speaker. In the area of legislation and regulatory amendments, work is underway in drafting amendments to the Firearms Act that will ascribe executive authority to the Firearms Licensing Authority. We anticipate that this piece of legislation will be tabled in the parliamentary year. Much work has been done on the drafting of the new Constabulary Force Act, which will provide a framework for Jamaica's modern intelligence-led police force. The finalization of this work is, however, contingent on amendments to the Police Services Commission, which will take some time, but it requires a constitutional amendment. There was some policy drift when I went to discussion with the CPC and the AG. We have clarified that, and work is now being done to ensure we can make the necessary amendment to the Police Services Commission Act, and therefore that will be brought to the House during the course of this parliament year. But bear in mind, although a simple amendment, it's a constitutional amendment and will have to be laid for 6 months. Therefore, we'll not bring the Police Act until next parliamentary year. The primary legislation for the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, the MOCA Act, was passed in 2018, November 2018. We have applied serious work to the finalization of the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency regulations. We are working assiduously to have these regulations approved to ensure full operationalization of MOCA by October 2019. And I can hold that date on this occasion, Mr. Speaker. The regulations are quite extensive and quite demanding for a new organization. Given the capacity constraints and the urgency with which these regulations were being treated, a full-time consultant has been contracted to provide additional support and ensure that the regulations are completed in good time. Mr. Speaker, in this ministry where we have dealt with various legislative action, I have learned in the hard way, it takes time to establish regulation. In fact, and while we need to have them done quickly, the law, those involved, well advised me, and I think I have learned the advice is sound advice. It's better to take time and do good legislation than do it quickly and do bad legislation. MOCA is a very important part of the security architecture. This government is committing to operationalizing MOCA very early, and certainly by October 2019, they'll have it all. The first set of regulations, the Code of Conduct, is a 49-page document, and because of the nature of MOCA, it requires some novel new oversight activity and regulation, and it's being handled very urgently by both the CPC, having the council done the work, and the AG's department, and I'm confident it will be here in time, and MOCA is a very critical organization. But even in its current state, work on MOCA has been significant. There's currently, despite of some of the narrative out there, 321 cases, anti-corruption cases before the courts, and 7 major cases awaiting the recommendation of the Department of Public Prosecution at this point in time. That's what MOCA has been doing in spite of the impairment. The case will come. It may be of note they have one major case involving a municipal council that's currently before the courts. Of interest to watch how it is operated, because this is the kind of work that MOCA does. Bear in mind, Mr. Speaker, that corruption cases has to be taken to court when the investigation is complete and thorough, because we're dealing with reputational issues, and if you move too quickly, you may be in trouble. And it's literally unconstitutional. MOCA is fulfilling its mandate to monitor and investigate cases of organized crime, fraud, and corruption. MOCA is actively pursuing these cases throughout the length and breadth of Jamaica to ensure that justice is served and that corruption will be rid of society of corruption in due course.
Also investigated education.
All issues that require investigation are being investigated thoroughly. The members of the House may recall that in my contribution to the sectoral debate, I had called attention to direct correlation between honest investment in security. Yes. And I didn't go into debate, it's just a fact. I just said I have a number of things that currently before the court. Right? That is before. Other things are there. The members who may call it in my contribution to the sectoral debate, they had called attention to the direct correlation between underinvestment in security architecture and the high murder rate. This administration has been keen to make necessary investments in improving working conditions of our police officers in the Jamaica Constabulary Force. This is a strategic preventive crime-fighting measure and will boost the morale of our police officers and facilitate their engagement with the communities that they serve. Over the fiscal year 2017-18, renovation work was undertaken on 30 police facilities. In fiscal year 2018-19, the number of refurbishing works increased to 59 police facilities, which included Prospect, Balaclava, Cross Keys, Santa Cruz, and the medical services branch of the police service in the West. And there are many more. For the fiscal year 2019-20, we propose to impact on 60 police facilities across the nation. We have done a complete audit of police stations, and we will in fact improve the condition in all 186. To date, repairs have been effected since the budget to 17 facilities, of which Spring Hill and Trenchtown are fully complete. That's Negril, also Spring being done, Sandy Bay, and we can go to a list of them. They are physically being done. The other 15 facilities are currently at various stages of completion, and police stations, these are police stations in Maypen, Moneague, Islington, Mountain View, Hayes, Sandy Bay, Fletcher's Land, Highgate, Morant Bay, Ulster Spring, Falmouth, Kingston Central, Black River, Negril, and the headquarters of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch. These are not SOEs, Mr. Speaker. This is work being done to improve the facilities in our police force. Work on the remaining 43 facilities will come on stream in the course of the year. 8 police stations will begin in a very short time. These are being done by, procured, Clarkstown, Gordontown, Mavisbank, Augusttown, Almantown, Admiraltown, Tivoli, and Irishtown. Mr. Speaker, we are on target to impact 149 of the 186 police stations before the end of the fiscal year. And indeed, it actually goes up to about 176. The ministry is in the process of acquiring lands in Spanish Town, and one of the highest crime areas in the country, and Savamar to reconstruct the St. Catherine North and Westmoreland divisional headquarters. These 2 police stations are an embarrassment to the country and must be among the priorities as we have done to fix. The CIB in Westmoreland operates from an old veranda, wooden structure with holes all over it, and they have one of the highest crime rate in the island, and we expect to impose on them productivity levels. It is crazy. We are fixing it and giving them a decent place to work in. Mr. Speaker, through the partnership with the National Housing Trust, 9 police stations are being earmarked for reconstruction as well. Port Antonio is near an 80% finish. Buff Bay is near about 50%. The drawings for Port Maria have been approved. Olympic Gardens contractor is mobilizing. Froome drawings are awaiting approval at the Parish Council. Lacovia drawings are awaiting approval at the Parish Council. Little London drawing waiting approval. Anchovy at the St. James Parish Council, and Stony Hill, the work is in progress. In addition to the major construction that is taking place, there is additional major construction taking place for Harman Barracks to be refurbished and prepared for not only the special ops team, but for training and a new facilities to be built in the west, in Montego Bay, to ensure that we can have permanently based a full contingent of the special ops team in that area. The facilities of Summit, Freeport, and Coral Gardens are being worked on, and in collaboration with the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, another 7 stations are being improved and rebuilt. Denham Town, Mount Salem, Adelphi, Bog Walk, Franklin Town, Lionel Town, and 4 parts. Some 165 of the 186 police stations. At the end of the day, our officers will have comfortable, clean areas to work in. It will certainly boost the morale of the police force and ensure that they have quality conditions to work under. It's not only pay that makes a professional out of individuals. These police stations are being redesigned specifically to make them more user-friendly and allow better interface between the police and the community. In an effort to stem the cycle, we'll be installing in our police system for the first time at last, you may say, my friend, we'll allow for a multi-tiered monitoring of a facilities maintenance program that will allow for multi-tiered monitoring of the improvement needs of the police facilities island-wide and in real time. That means requests will come to a modern system. We'll know when things go wrong. We'll set time frames, and leadership can monitor. We have never had a maintenance system for a police force. Never had, neither in building nor in mobility. It was always on and off, ad hoc, and therefore led to the degradation of the force and our crime-fighting capacity. These structural improvements, Mr. Speaker, will undoubtedly boost the morale of our force and positively impact the quality and service they provide. Mobility, Mr. Speaker, yes, we have had some challenge, but the fact is we need at least 1,400 operational police vehicles. We bought 279 in 2018-19, and since the start of the year, we have acquired 9 special purpose vehicles from a 200 million allocation out of the 1 billion. And what we have done to ensure we get what we need, we have sent out the RFP for a price of $800 million to be used to procure retrofitted fit-for-purpose motor vehicles for the police. The specifications were developed by the competent technical personnel of the Jamaica Constabulary Force in consultation with mechanical. All those done. These vehicles, we had a slight delay in the return of the bids, but bids will be brought in on the 7th of August, and the police will be provided with an adequate fleet of vehicles. The process will begin. We have had challenges with the used car issue, where a contract was literally mishandled by the vendor who was supplying. The procurement process was followed. We have a long delay, but the lawyers, I will say to this House, have worked out a solution. No, I never said it was settled. I told you we had a challenge. I will speak confident today. The pickups are clear this week, and given where it is now, we expect to get cars by the end of August. You can hold me to that. Member from part of St. Catherine, I've kept in line. They had a couple of good lawyers, and they finally worked their way out of it. The vehicles will be coming very late, but we are moving on. Of note, Mr. Speaker, we want to guarantee that the vehicles are adequately serviced. For optimal performance. As a result, there will be a servicing contract will be included to ensure that the selected provider will service the vehicles on a routine basis and additional support our officers across the island. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, 80 bikes that were procured last year now in the island will be distributed to the police formation required. It is projected. In addition, we're in the process, Mr. Speaker, again, for the first time in the history of this police, which is nearly 100 years old, where mobility is critical and essential for successful crime fighting. Before we can demand them of the kind of performance we're talking about, we are in the process of developing a fleet management system to provide greater transparency and accountability in the procurement as well as in the maintenance of the JCF motor vehicles. So these new vehicles have a proper fleet management system in place, not only from contract service work with the suppliers, but that will allow the police command to monitor the vehicles. Since technology at bay use is common, easy thing to do. Install the required equipment to provide GPS location, indicate time for servicing, anything going wrong, it's easy and available. Should have been done a long time. But this government is pursuing and completing that process. Procurement is complete, it will be done. We are going about the acquisition of the vehicles in a systematic and transparent way. Critical to police success, Mr. Speaker, is communication. No police force can work efficiently. Whatever consultation we have, whatever we do, whatever we try to do, it will not work if they don't have the requisite equipment, mobility, communication, good working conditions. So we are set about improving the communication system. Extensive work is underway to complete a comprehensive police communication network that will be suited for the current needs and demands of the police force. Upon completion, all police stations and all vehicles will be able to rely on a smart communication system to communicate police efficiently across the island. The microwave network is installed in some 40 police stations already, and new antennas are being installed. As we look forward to it for the future, Mr. Speaker, we are examining some 90 additional sites to ensure that all microwave service can provide to the entire Jamaica at all times. We'll ensure an effective communication system is in place for the police force as they embark on the process to reduce crime in this country in a sustainable manner. Mr. Speaker, I'll comment on the task force issue. The Jamaica program is part of the use of technology. It is being used to increase the capacity of surveillance, and we can see some of the work already done. That is a new monitoring room completed and ready to start operation. We are seeking to connect both the Metrolink to interconnect all the current cities that are involved, but we had to take steps to move out the legacy cameras which were inappropriate, many of them not working, did not suit what we're doing. We commend the various groups that made a contribution in them, but they were done without technical guidance and were not suitable and functioning. Some of them are simple things, Mr. Speaker. You install a camera, and to save energy, you give them a solar panel, but you install them in a tree, and they never have any sunlight. They never work. Cameras across the island in Jamaica I program include some 250 now working and being monitored. 257 in Kingston, 39 in Spanish Town, 14 in Portmore, 31 in Maypen, 15 in Ochias, 22 in Mandeville, 35 in Negril, 93 in Montego Bay. The 119 legacy cameras have been marked for replacement because they have proved unsuitable for the new era. Tender packages are being prepared for the installation of approximately 300 additional cameras that have been ordered to replace these legacy cameras and increase the capacity at various locations across the island. Mr. Speaker, the process of affecting the centralized monitoring in Kingston of all cameras at police headquarters, of course, from 5 remote locations across the island through Metrolink Internet is now complete. We are now able to monitor activities in remote locations, and as we complete this, we'll be seeking to expand the Jamaica Eye program to various smaller townships where increased surveillance can make a significant difference, and we'll note that a number of these townships are now coming under attack from the criminal gangs. On the screen you'll see installation work being done in addition to this new center that was established. We are in fact doing our work and doing the investment to prepare our security force to do the job we are demanding of them. The reality that we must face is that we never organize and invest in our security force to deal with the level of criminal activity we have today. That's a bare fact. And while we support and will continue with consultations and roundtable discussions, nothing can change that fact until we build out the security force. That's the challenge we face, and that's what we're doing as a government. Mr. Speaker, a crucial dimension of our crime fighting measure is the capacity development of our invaluable human resource. This is both in terms of numbers as well as quality. In seeking to ascertain a clear picture, but there's always much talk about numbers, and putting more boots on the ground, and shortage here and there. It has to be done professionally to know your real needs and then set about in a program to achieve that target. That is common sense and doesn't need to be a trained professional in the field. It's just saying common sense, as your friend across the say, not rocket science. You must get an analysis of what is the problem and deal with it. We have never done so. We have had many reports suggesting all kinds of things. This commissioner, pursuing this challenge without doing it in a knee-jerk way, undertake a review of manpower needs of the police force by professional human resource, highly qualified professional human resource skills in individuals, and can say today we need an additional 4,000 territorial policemen, that is, men who are based in police stations across the island. We need a possible 3,000 in the non-geographical division. In pursuing this, of course, we have to ensure there's adequate supervision for young officers, not only who are coming in, but those who are there already, if we are to have effective culture built out in the police force. To that extent, we are developing an officer selection and training program, not an AC accelerated one, which will seek to expand our officer corps from 3% of the force to 7%. 3% means the entire police force of 14,000 have 400 officers, a little less. many of them near their retirement stage. The process now ensures that they all become senior officers when they're about to retire. It is not good for either efficiency or professional development. Now we are creating an officer selection program as a permanent part of the police structure to develop a genuine police culture in Jamaican police culture. So from the ranks we'll recruit, and if someone coming in with talent, we'll recruit. They serve some time at the lower level, like train as a police officer, do some time, then move up on a structured basis, but by doing the officer training program. That's being done, prepared, and will begin later this year. In addition to that, of course, it allows us to engage specific skills in cyber tech and electronics as we move into a new era with police activity. And such individuals that require need to be paid at a higher level to retain them and keep them engaged. This will, of course, Mr. Speaker, see significant expansion of training, and we are moving to train at least 1,600 in a year, possibly 1,800. This year, we are currently concluding arrangement to acquire Tranquility Bay in St. Elizabeth, where there's a facility that was used as a school that we can train an additional and make it a college. St. Elizabeth in Mr. Witter here, I think it is. I'm not sure Tranquility Bay is or is Mr. Southwest. But we are acquiring that property in the parish of St. Elizabeth, and it will become a college of the police training college, fully operated. All right? We'll also be doing some short-term thing at the Teamwork facility in Montego Bay, where we can accommodate about 130 or 140 during the course of the next 2 years. So over the next 2 years, we should be able to train the 3,000 value we require to begin to add to the force and complete it, built out. All three centers will be under control of the police, and therefore have the full culture of Jamaican police professionals. Of course, we have to equip our officers. This will include, as we proceed, giving them maybe new uniforms, body cams, more non-lethal equipment to support their community engagement initiatives, and it works. Today, we tend to charge the police with police brutality because they shoot somebody, but all we give them as uniform, as equipment, is a sidearm. So if a man attacks with a machete, stone, or a knife, we have to shoot to protect himself. This shows the kind of neglect we give to a policeman. We will correct that and ensure they have proper uniforms, proper equipment, and as well as those who get involved engage in more high-risk activity have proper bulletproof vests and helmets. We intend, Mr. Speaker, and we are proceeding to build a modern, relevant security force in Jamaica for which officers can feel a sense of pride and dignity in carrying out their duties. They will be a force for good in Jamaica. Critical part of what we do, Mr. Speaker, is border security. We continue to improve our border monitoring and patrolling system.
Yes,
well, I think we can build a wall to keep this one out. The Passport and Immigration System and the Jamaica Customs Agency we have held discussion, and they are being upgraded to be able to ensure we have more efficient monitoring at our legitimate ports of entry, and not only in managing the exit and entry, but in ensuring we can keep out contraband, which is a big part of the security issue. Criminal enterprise operate in the country, let's say later on, a major business. And we have to ensure we protect our borders, not only in the wider sense of the Coast Guard, but our legitimate ports are still areas where a significant amount of contraband, guns, ammunition, cigarettes, and even trafficking, human trafficking are taking place. We are taking steps to improve our border security. As it relates to patrolling our territorial waters, the disruption of drugs from guns, drugs for guns and food for guns trade is crucial. Jamaica Defence Force Coast Guard has been strengthened, and the development of a new battalion, the Maritime, Air and Cyber Command, and the acquisition in this process we acquired 2 new vehicles, 2 new offshore patrol vehicles, 1 maritime patrol aircraft, and we'll continue to invest in additional vessels. My point out, Mr. Speaker, the goal is to ensure we have 4 OPVs and 2 MPAs. Some will question the value of that value, but I'll demonstrate that later on today, how effective this has been. And if we understand the role of transnational crime in Jamaica, will understand unless we do this efficiently and well and disrupt the criminal enterprises, the homicide rate now will never go down. Because the big business criminals, they buy the poor people in the inner city, they give them guns and they hire them. And if you lock up 20, they find 20 more while the unemployment is high in the area. We do other things, I will demonstrate, but it is crucial that we really aim at the big transnational criminal enterprises. In this process, of course, Mr. Speaker, several of the ministers in our country are being financed by persons residing outside of Jamaica, who have established themselves as dons in different communities across the island. We cannot reach them so easily. So therefore, we continue to collaborate with our international partners to apprehend and prosecute these criminals, in particular the ABC Group, United States, Canada, and UK. In order to disrupt these criminal networks, we have had to revisit and renegotiate several cooperation agreements with our long-standing international partners. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like the members to listen carefully to this. It was necessary so to do because we are currently operating without any of those tools under which that government operated and did some good work. I don't want to dismiss it. Kingfish worked well. They targeted transnational gangs involved in cocaine transshipment primarily, and we commend them for that effort. Kingfish has been morphed into Mocha, so we don't need another task force. The body still exists. They targeted one gang, the Gideon gang, which was run by Andem, and they got two big fish, so to speak, Bulby and Zeeks in the process. But in dealing with international and transnational crime, I have to say it and remind this House, it is the highest court of our land, decided on the AG that the operational MOU then did not meet the standard of our Constitution, that didn't meet the law as required, and therefore we could not operate with it. That's just a fact, not the government says so, the courts of the land, highest court of the land, and therefore had to read it. It has taken us a year and nearly 4 months. We are proceeding, and we'll have that settled during the course of this year. And this kind of cooperation is critical. But that operational agreement was not valid under law. We are very keen to ensure this process continues because we recognize the high importance of dealing with the transnational crime. We have worked hard. The law is in both the ministry, AG's department, and the Foreign Affairs Ministry are working almost on a daily basis to ensure we can complete this. So I'd like to point out, Mr. Speaker, a recent dispute talk about the Shiprider Agreement incident that came on. Let me just say in this House, I won't get to debate. Clearly, when Jamaicans are apprehended, they must be treated well, and we must ascertain that they do so. The partners who we have this agreement with are people who we have confidence in their own jurisprudence system and their own penal system. We wouldn't have an agreement with them otherwise. The agreement was done plainly to ensure that certain activities will be carried out. For example, at that time, the country lacked any intercept capacity. It was necessary, therefore, to allow the Americans to do almost all the interception for us. And that's a fact of life. But in the incident here, I just want to make 2 points very clear. The intelligence in this country know that drugs was on that boat. Not a part of it, drugs was on the boat. We know the sender from Jamaica. The men who were on the boat were just foot soldiers. And therefore, getting a plea bargain would be a normal thing for them. Nobody wanted to lock up those people for 30 years. It is a man who was, we have been able to catch him, sure, but we know it was being done. And that there was 600 pounds of ganja on the boat. And Go Fast Boat is not a fishing boat. So when we are debating these issues, let us debate them frankly and honestly. This minister was then a minister. And I think I can say it. He is one proud, independent black man who don't bow to anybody. Therefore, we must take poor people and send them without good purpose. Right? The drugs, he neither bow to Uncle Bobby, the other man, not to Uncle Sam. He is independent and strong with that. Right? So I don't want us to get confused, but their condition in which they are detained, there was a hurricane there and all that, we have to get explanation because they must be treated well. No apologies for that. But we must understand the drugs for guns trade and the food for drugs trade is the greatest clear and present danger to the society today and must be dealt with without any equivocation at all. I'm going to show Mr. Speaker, in fact, I'll run this down a little bit because, and come back to this later on. There are other things on the, Well, all right, we'll come back to it. Mr. Speaker, there are but a few examples of the work being pursued in addressing the crime situation in Jamaica. The importance of these initiatives cannot be overemphasized. I show this picture, Mr. Speaker, because this particular load of cocaine was seized by our boat, intercepted by our assets just yesterday. 2,700 pounds of cocaine. That is street value of well over $40 million US dollars. 1.5. Now, that is over $1 billion. Billions of dollars. Now, this not only demonstrates our improved capacity, but understand these are the men who bring the guns by the hundreds. We are currently, by my intelligence informed, maybe getting up to 200 guns coming to Jamaica on a monthly basis. So even when we get 100, we're not going anywhere. That's how they're coming in. And who we need to catch is not the man who them used to shoot people, it's the man who's organizing this. Because what this sends us is not just that commend the improved capacity of the JDF or Coast Guard, but it tells us that operating around Jamaica now is people who have the capacity to deal with 3,000 pounds of coke. That is a serious business enterprise and requires the attention of the whole country and the support of the entire country in working, this is out in the sea, working with the security forces, just off southeast of Morant Point. It was delivered by another boat, which pictures are available of them. We couldn't take them because our partners gave us invitation and our MP and Coast Guard boat could do the interception. Right? Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the more critical issue is that when this kind of person is operating, we have a serious and clear threat to our society. 30 pounds of coke is a whole heap. We're going back and we have to prepare to deal with them. So, Mr. Speaker, only by dealing with this, we can have sustained reduction in crime by doing the kind of things we're doing now. You know, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about investment now in security, I have said before it is woefully inadequate prior up to this point. Our colleague from Manchester keeps speaking about the low return. I can only say that the gentleman from Central Manchester, I'm sorry he's not here today, I'm sure he as a very accomplished investment banker, and so too is his colleague who speaks on finance in South St. Andrew. They understand fully that if you have a bad portfolio, where communication, police station, inadequate equipment, everything, and to convert it to a profitable one with a good return, it takes planning, time, and investment, appropriate investment over time to get a response. Mr. Speaker, my advice to the members on that side, buy Proven, not Rise United. Prove it, buy Proven. That's the bank they run. Don't buy Rise United.
Together one.
That's the wrong thing, right?
Together one we rise.
It is woefully inadequate investment, and I want to use this opportunity to point out a fact of our history, Mr. Speaker, not something that I am creating. On the displayed here is the murder rate per 100,000 over a period of the last, I think, from 1969-79. If you go back, it would be a straight line upwards. This year was the primary aberration, and all of us in this House should have some response to that. And it was a shameful year in our year 1980 election when we went to 41.6 in what was essentially a political conflict. Every member of this House have some response for this, and I will move on there. But the normal rise was straight up. 1 or 2 years decline was not statistically significant in this kind of activity. You have to take the ongoing. We can point out a few things, but that's the reality. Our crime increase in homicide has been a constant upward trend. If you see, that's what it was. A little dip here and there is not statistically significant because you're not coming below 36, which is crisis. If you look at expenditure now, however, you'll see why we are there. This is not something I'm creating. All governments from then have not invested in security at all. Look at, it's a flat, almost insignificant.
18 years flat.
Right? We get here, we had a little investment in 2007, 2008, when in fact we did give the JDF some OPVs, and the Jamaica Consul, of course, got the Suzuki vehicles. Some said they were too small, but they're new vehicles, and they work pretty well. We then had the SOE in the West. It dropped for a while, 2010, but again, an acute measure. There was no sustainable activity, and clearly by 2014-15, the crime started to go up again, and we shot up back to 62, which is where we were before. That's just a fact of life. This is what the numbers tell me, and numbers are empirical basis, not how I feel, with emotions, we have started a process of investment. This year, for the first time in the history of the country, we have invested as a country 1% of the capital budget, GDP, in capital for security forces. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, after looking at this graph, I think it would be appropriate for us to suggest that, just like the gentleman is suggesting we should have a monitoring of what we do, I think one of the things we should lay, which we did in the case of the agreements we had in restoring the economy, many would not remember that a floor was placed on the amount of money to be spent in social investment. A floor was placed on how much must not, the expenditure and the social safety net should not fall below that. And there was loans from the World Bank and other areas to support that, to ensure we did not take this suffering of our people at a certain level in restoring the economy. And in many ways, that's what protected this country's stability more than anything else, that we could go through a period where we had a 7.5% primary